This is why abandoned houses should stay abandoned. In April of 2011, two guys named Chris and George would explore an abandoned house in hopes of capturing the paranormal. When they get there, they attempt to make contact with spirits, and what they capture is absolutely terrifying. Take a look.
What is your name? Hello? Can you do anything besides play the piano?
Let's go, seriously, right now.
This is why camping can be horrifying. In 2021, a woman was camping with her husband and family in a small remote lake in New Mexico. There was about 10 people in their group and another group of 6 people on the next campsite. It was nighttime and both groups were doing typical activities, making s'mores, having a few drinks, and telling stories. When suddenly they all heard what sounded like a little girl yelling out for help. Neither group had children with them, but they were all positive they heard a little girl, so they decided to search the area they heard the noise come from together. There was a field behind their campsite, and they all saw a very tall, pure white figure standing maybe 100 feet away from them in the field, making the noises. They made their way closer to investigate, but whatever it was they saw started backing off as they got closer and disappeared into the trees. All night they continued to hear the little girl calling out for help as they tried to sleep. This man died and returned after 10 years. Here's what happened. In 2021, in a mental health facility, one of the residents was an elective mute, which means he couldn't talk. But there were no medical reasons as to why. He had spoken earlier in his life and in fact seemed quite normal, with the exception of being close to 7 feet tall. He had been raised in the Deep South and joined the military when he was 19, but one night he vanished. He was declared AWOL and eventually he was declared missing and dead. 10 years later, a 7-foot tall man walked into a VA emergency room in the Midwest. He said to the receptionist, "My name is Marion Duchesne, and I've been dead for 10 years. Those were the last words he ever spoke. He was covered with dust and he was wearing the same clothes he was reported wearing that night he vanished. These two girls accidentally invited a demon into their doll. During 1970, a girl named Deirdre was gifted a Raggedy Ann doll for her 25th birthday by her mother Larry. After a few nights had passed, the doll began to move to different rooms on its own. Notes began manifesting randomly in the apartment, saying things like "help us" or "help Cal," so they would call a psychic meeting. The clairvoyant channeled the spirit of a 7-year-old girl who died in this land before the house had even been built. Her name was Annabelle Higgins, and she had been wandering around the property in loneliness from her young death. Touched by her story, Larry and Deirdre would accept the doll as a living human being, but Larry's fiance Cal thought no good will ever come from this. Annabelle felt insulted by Cal. Then one night when Cal was asleep, he was attacked by something that had 7 sharp claws. Terrified by this event, they contacted 2 paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Turns out there was no Annabelle, it had been a demon who tricked them in order to grant it permission to harm them. Knowing the dangers of this malicious doll, the Warrens took the doll and contained it in a secure place. This statue contains the mummified remains of a Buddhist master. He passed away around the year 1100, but researchers are unsure if he actually mummified himself. If he did, he would do this through a process of self-mummification, and this process is absolutely horrific. The first 1,000 days, the monk ceases to eat all foods except nuts and berries, followed by extensive exercises to rid their bodies of all fat. The next 1,000 days, their diet is restricted to only bark and roots. They'll also consume a highly poisonous tea that's made from the sap of a certain type of tree, which causes vomiting and rapid loss of body fluid. It also active as preservative and to kill off all maggots and bacteria that cause the body to decay after death. After all this torture, the monk will lock himself in a stone tomb barely larger than his body. It's there where he would go through a state of meditation in the lotus position, a position where he would stay until death. They had a small air tube that provided oxygen to the tomb. Each day he would ring a bell to let anyone know outside that he was still alive. When the bell stopped ringing, they would remove the air tube for the final 1,000-day period of the ritual. What if your favorite childhood puppet show was this instead of something like Sesame Street or The Muppets? Well, in Czechoslovakia, this was a very popular character in a kids' TV show called Slineko. Its name is Razafan, which was their version of Sesame Street, but kind of designed to give kids nightmares. When the show ended in 1989, the puppet was disposed of, never to be seen again. That was until a YouTuber found him and unfortunately would bring him back to life. These are the things that should only happen in nightmares. In 2009, a man by the name of John Jones went to explore the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah with his family. John was a spelunker and had been exploring caves since he was a kid, but this exploration changed everything. John had squeezed through the area, but he arrived at the birth canal, which is the smallest part of the cave. Since the cave was so narrow, he couldn't really turn around, so he was left with no options but to push forward. Unfortunately for John, he had reached an even smaller area, and on top of this, he was stuck upside down. After many attempts to extract John from this cave, nothing would work. The cave was filled with concrete to avoid its dangers, and to this day, John's body remains sealed inside. This is why you always trust your gut. On March of 2019, a man named Franco went exploring an abandoned town during the night. He would find strange objects that resembled rituals in random areas of the town. Shortly after, he started to hear voices, as if there were people still living in those houses. It was getting dark, and he started to have a strange feeling that something was watching him. Unable to use a flashlight to avoid being spotted, he would see a man standing on the other side of the road. Franco would call a friend to come pick him up by a nearby bridge, as he had planned this in case of an emergency. As they were leaving, he would come face to face with his stalker.
Frank!
Why is 3 a.m. considered the witching hour, or the time of night where spooky stuff happens? The origin of this belief stretches back as far as 1535, where Catholic churches in Europe prohibited any activities at 3 to 4 a.m. due to high amounts of witchcraft. Also, it is known that in the Western Christian tradition, these hours are related to higher amounts of paranormal activity. So, it is referred to as the Devil's Hour, due to it being a mocking of the hour where Jesus died, which was believed to be at 3 p.m. Now you know if someone asked you. China has been acting extremely sus recently, kind of like they're about to have a freaking zombie apocalypse. Anyways, here's 3 crazy facts you should know. The first one is super disturbing, so warning. They're giving all pets COVID tests. If they turn out positive, they'll take them away from you. But it's not temporarily, it's forever. And, super disturbing, they won't fix them, they'll sacrifice them. I'll try censoring to the best of my ability, but keep in mind this is still very disturbing. They're locking down all residents in their homes by placing a blue or green fence around the area and heavily guarding the place. Also, they're not allowed to leave until sometimes 3 weeks. Third fact, if your kid or baby tests positive for COVID, they'll take them away from you, no questions asked. This is YouTube's greatest mystery, and whoever solves it wins $5,000. On March of 2020, a Google reviewer by the name of Lee R posted this picture of a kebab in a Turkish kebab restaurant. Just like the blue dress picture, unknowing if it was a turd on a pita plate or a kebab that looked like shit, this YouTuber by the name of Dennis would search for the truth. On April 15th of 2022, he would make a thorough documentary on the Turkish poop kebab. He would reach out to a gastroenterologist for the poop side and the chef for the meat side. But this is what they had to say.
Hi, I'm Dr. Carlton. I'm one of the gastroenterologists at Digestive Disease Associates.
I'm going to show you said image here. Here it is. What do you think it is?
I think it's probably a kebab that looks like shit.
Hi, my name is Mark Pasavis. I'm the chef at Amardine Restaurant.
I mean, I'll show you the photo. And
Okay,
then we
so
can
sounds
go.
good. This is definitely ground beef of some sort, I think, in time. So whatever this portion is way bigger than this side. Also,
if he wanted to know the truth, he needed to get in contact with the original publisher, and that was Lee R. He found out that Lee R's most recent Google review was in a shop called Big Woody's in the UK, so he would reach out to them. They actually helped him and attempted to contact Lee R through the Google review, but he would never answer. Frustrated by the mystery, Dennis would put a $5,000 bounty to whoever can prove if this photo is a kebab or a turd.
I'm offering up a $5,000 bounty, either who Lee R is or what this photo is of, with proof.
This is why you should not have an attic. In 2017, a couple by the name of Jerome and Ashley lived on a historic house in Pittsburgh. One night, Jerome overheard noises coming from the attic, followed by a small light shining through the corner of a pipe. He would immediately think to himself, is someone living in my attic? So he would set up cameras to see whoever or whatever's up there. What those cameras captured was nightmare fuel. They saw a 69-year-old man living in their attic, and he had been crawling around and watching them as they slept. It was the owner of a renovating roadhouse next door, and he had installed a false wall that connected to their attic. He was charged for stalking and trespassing, but pledged not guilty because he says he was up there renovating. This farmer encountered a creature that looked like a real-life vampire. During 1975, a series of livestock killings in a small town located in Puerto Rico would attribute to what they call the Vampire of Moca. Initially, it had been suspected that the killings may have been committed by a satanic cult, but there would be more reports of killings around the island. Each of the animals were found to have their bodies bled dry through a series of small circular insertions near their neck. It has been described as a reptilian-like creature with spikes emerging from its back and leather-like skin. Shortly after their first incident in Puerto Rico, other animals were reported in many other countries with similar causes of death. The terrifying stories of this reptilian creature haunting us remains a mystery. This is the story of a man who ate his boyfriend. Armin Maivis was a young boy who grew up with his mom and was her cleaning servant until the age of 37, where she would pass away. Armin would become a computer programmer and was known by everyone as the best neighbor in town for his good deeds. As a child, Armin always wanted a younger blonde brother to eat because, according to him, that would be the only way he could keep him forever. He also fantasized of eating attractive boys in school because he says that's the only way he would make his loneliness disappear. When his mom passed away, he spoke in a chat room of cannibals where people wanted to eat or be eaten. But Armin would realize none of them really wanted to follow through with their horrifying fantasies. Frustrated at this, he made an online ad looking for a young, well-built man that wanted to be eaten. A man by the name of Bernard Brandes responded to his advertisement. The full story is in my page, so if you're interested, check it out. This optical illusion is crazy. It confuses so many people. Check it out. This is the Schroeder staircase. It was created in 1858 by a German scientist named Schroeder. If you flip your phone upside down, it makes it easier for your brain to change perspectives. If you're able to change it at will, that's really impressive, especially if it's your first few tries. It's super cool, so I don't want to spoil the trick. I'll let you guys figure it out. Warning, according to the legend, whoever reads or listens to the story will be visited by this demon in a month. Pray for me. Kashima Reiko is a tragic tale of an ordinary woman who lived in the city of Hokkaido, Japan. One night, as she was waiting on the Meishin Expressway train station to get back home, she was beaten by a group of men and left laying on the floor barely conscious. Reiko, laying on the floor with the little strength she had, called out for somebody to please help her, but it was so late at night there was nobody around. After coming to the realization that no one was coming to help her, she began crawling her way back home. Disoriented and barely conscious, she sees this intense beam of light, followed by a deafening sound. Reiko realized she had been crawling towards the middle of the train tracks, and this train was seconds away from killing her. With a beaten and weakened body, it was already too late for Reiko. The train made its way and severed her body in half. Legend says when she appears to you, she'll ask you, "Where are my legs?" and you have to answer on the Meishin Expressway. She'll ask you again, "Who told you that?" and the answer must be, "Kashima Reiko told me that." Legend says if you answer these wrong, she'll sever your body in half. Creepy Unexplained Sounds Part 5. In 2014, during the middle of the night, a man was fast asleep in his cabin, when all of a sudden he was awoken by the screams of a woman crying out for help, so he looked outside his window. When he looked outside into the woods, he was sure he was looking in the direction where the screaming had been coming from, but he couldn't see anything. Knowing the dangers of the woods and thinking to himself, what kind of person could be outside in these freezing conditions? So he decided to stay inside. In fear of what he may have witnessed, he decided to record the event. Take a listen. In 1948, this disturbing picture was taken in a home for emotionally disturbed children. One day, they were given an assignment, and that was to draw home on the chalkboard. All the other kids drew normal things like houses, but this young girl named Tereska grew up in a concentration camp. The real story of Tereska remains unknown, but her chaotic scribbles are a chilling representation of her memory. This woman was so jealous that she killed her own kids. Maria was a beautiful but vain woman. She lived in a small village where she would meet and eventually marry a wealthy man. The pair would have 2 beautiful kids, but after a few happy years together, their marriage started to decline. The husband would begin to spend less time at home and ignoring her, but pouring all his attention to his kids. Then one day, when Maria was walking along with her children, she would see her husband with another woman. Enraged by what she had seen, she grabbed her 2 kids and went to a nearby river where she would murder and dispose their bodies. When she realized what she had done, she would immediately jump into the water to try and find their bodies, but she couldn't. The village would bury her body. On the next night, the village would see a ghostly figure walking along the riverbed, weeping and searching for her kids. This is the original tale of the Weeping Lady. This man accidentally recorded a spirit while he had been boarding an empty plane. A Twitter user by the name Gus Gadong was boarding an empty plane, so he decided to record a video to send it to his wife. He didn't notice anything strange at first, until much later after reviewing the footage. You can see a horrific figure peeking at Gus. Gus claims there is nobody boarded yet. What do you guys think? This woman went tubbing and witnessed the spirit of a drowned victim. On July 8th of 2018, a woman by the name Deborah Morales went tubbing with her friends when she captured something terrifying. Deborah can be heard screaming and laughing until her camera captures something in the water. She captures what seems to be a drowned body. Disturbed by the footage, Deborah reached out for help and found out that the person who drowned in this water had died 5 years ago. This man captured actual footage of what I can only describe as a demon. On April of 2021, a man named Cody was alone in his house when strange things began to happen. Cody noticed the bathroom lights started to flicker and the sink was running. He turns the water off, and as he's leaving the bathroom, he begins to feel uneasy, like if there's something else in the house that does not want him there. As he's moving away from the bathroom, he hears something behind him. The bathroom door had closed on him, and this is where Cody was truly freaked out. So Cody decided he would step outside the house and call his girlfriend to let her know what's been happening. She tells him to stay outside, but he insists on recording the event. When he goes back inside, he finds his kitchen in total disarray. Here's where things truly get horrifying.
Nope. After 2 hours, Cody finally musters up the courage to go back inside the house.
After inspecting every room, every closet, underneath every bed, Cody could not find anyone. So he thought. After closely inspecting his footage, he found something in his daughter's room that had been watching him.
My heart just dropped. I could feel my face, all the blood in my face ran. I mean, it scared me. It just looked like somebody watching me. I didn't sleep that night.
Is this video proof children can actually see ghosts? A mother sits with her 2 daughters having dinner. When all of a sudden, the older daughter gets scared by something watching them in the other room.
It's okay. I just turned off the lights, that's all. What was that?
The daughter closest to the room arguably becomes temporarily possessed, laughing frantically.
What did you do? Oh What, Nani? Look at me. What are you scared of? The fish? Oh, the fish died. What? Angel's sleeping already. It's raining, girls. Nani, are you almost done eating? Look at me. Look at me.
When she takes a closer look, whatever's in that room terrifies her.
Look at me. What's the matter?
Can't imagine the horror that's put upon the mother as she desperately tries to reassure her two girls. This is how you spot a skinwalker. On January of this year, a creator by the name Donnie Donahue uploaded a video titled Skinwalker Sighting in Abandoned Mine. In the video, Danny hears an unnerving sound coming from the cave.
What the fuck is that?
Creepy enough, the cave is sealed shut, like it's keeping something locked away.
Did we go up there? I don't hear it anymore. Should not be doing this.
As Danny gets closer, what he captures will haunt him forever. Take a look.
I don't see anything. Go.
This man went camping and recorded his own abduction. A 30-year-old man named Jacob Edris went camping in Eugene, Oregon on November 14th of 2017. His camera was found around his campsite along with all of his other belongings.
Go. It's about that time. Sun is setting. It's about 8 o'clock. Should be dark out here in less than an hour. There's something right outside. That can't be. That gets us. Someone's messing around with the rocks out there. Jesus. Leave me alone!
To this day, Jacob remains missing. It's unsure what exactly happened to Jacob and his disappearance, but many claim this horrifying footage explains it all. Take a look. A group of teenagers broke into an alleged haunted mansion. This is what happened to them. On 1859, a man by the name Dr. Barton had built a mansion for his family on top of burial grounds. Shortly after his two daughters moving in, they would die of unknown causes. Stories claim Dr. Barton resulted in satanic practices in result of grieving for his daughters' deaths. Years later, in 2001, a group of teenagers gave a visit to the abandoned and alleged haunted Barton mansion. This is what happened that night. Take a look. Creepy Unexplained Sounds Part 8. On October 3rd of 2019, a group of friends went grouse hunting at a nearby forest in Ontario, Canada. It was just like any other hunting day for them. Until later that day at around 6:50 p.m. All of a sudden, the group hears what sounds like horrific roars of an unknown creature coming from deep inside the forest. This is the story of the world's most haunted painting, The Anguished Man. This painting was made by a mentally disturbed man using his own blood. Then, moments later, he took his own life. A man by the name Sean Robinson took responsibility of the painting after the previous owner, his grandmother, had passed away. The painting manifests paranormal activity in the area it's present, so Sean keeps it locked away in his attic. In 2011, Sean decided he would share to the world what would happen if the painting is not kept locked away. Take a look.
So I'm going to set up the recording equipment and leave it for approximately 8 hours, and I'll leave the light on.
This is the creepiest real haunted house evidence I have ever seen. A couple by the name Lee and Stacy from the YouTube channel called Really Haunted have been documenting their paranormal experience for well over a year now. So they installed surveillance equipment ever since they got progressively worse in their house. They have so many paranormal videos, but in my opinion this one is really convincing, since it was captured by an SLS camera, and these cameras capture human-like shapes based on joints and movement. You can see this curious entity wandering around Lee's bedroom. As it approaches Lee, it aggressively knocks down a nightstand. What does this entity want with Lee and Stacy? It's truly terrifying to think. What is haunting this couple's house and why? If you're hearing the voice of an evil spirit, you could try this to get rid of it. On January 27th of 2022, a YouTuber by the name Jama Q would experience the cries of a wandering spirit at 1 a.m. Ever since he moved to this house, he has been tormented by different wandering spirits randomly through the night. Jama was preparing to test out a ritual a viewer of his had suggested. His house was built in front of an ancient burial ground where they would practice a ritual named Kukatashi. Kukatashi was a ritual that the accused were ordered to swear their innocence before the gods. Then they were forced to put their hand inside of this pot of boiling water. It was said that the innocent person would be unharmed, but the guilty would be badly scalded. This is how you spot a skinwalker. On May 6th of 2020, a YouTube channel by the name Gemini Home Entertainment uploaded a survival video. And it was pretty basic, until it started to demonstrate the dangers of nature, calling one specifically an auditory hallucination. You can see someone camping, when all of a sudden they begin recording what seems like a man calling out for help. But if you take a closer look, there's definitely something off about this guy. To this, the video says don't approach it. If you hear them, they have already heard you. Creepy Unexplained Sounds Part 7. The Missing Files of the Psychophony of Hell. During the late 1900s, a paranormal investigator by the name German D'Argumosa dedicated most of his life to writing and documenting the paranormal. But it wasn't until 1985 that German would capture an audio so disturbing he decided not to release it to the public. The recordings took place in a library in Madrid after the owners claimed experiencing illness and an ominous presence. During the investigation, they recorded this at 3 a.m. in complete silence, and they called it the Psychophony of Hell. Have a listen. This is the story of Elisabeth Fritzl, the girl who disappeared at 18 years old and returned 24 years later. On August 28, 1984, Joseph Fritzl modified his basement where he would hold captive his own daughter Elizabeth. Her mother Rosemary immediately filed a missing persons report and had no idea what was going on. Joseph would force Elizabeth to write a letter in order to clear suspicions of her whereabouts, saying she joined a cult and is staying with a friend anonymously. The missing person case would eventually drop, and for the next 24 years, Elizabeth would be sexually abused by her father and forgotten by everyone. Elizabeth would have 7 kids. One was a miscarriage and the other died 3 days after birth. Joseph would convince authorities he adopted 3 of Elizabeth's abandoned kids, and the other 2 would grow up inside the cellar with Elizabeth. One day, Elizabeth convinces Joseph to take one of her sick kids to the hospital, and somehow convinces him to take her with him after 24 years of confinement. When they arrived at the hospital, the police would take Elizabeth and question her, and she would immediately confess everything. In 2009, Joseph was sent to life in prison. Got a ghost haunting your house? Try this to get rid of it. In 2020, a Japanese man named Jama Q was looking to rent a house when he came across this super cheap deal, but it had a catch. The original owner had passed away in the toilet, where his body was discovered multiple days later. After only a few days of moving in, Jama began experiencing crazy paranormal activity. Jama saw there were strange steps nearby his house, and after some research he discovered that before the properties were built back in 1970, it was a burial ground for ancient tribes. After being denied help from the local church, he decided to take action using boiling holy water.